Hey everybody! I'm here today to show you and tell you how to fix ripped drywall paper. This will be a super easy tutorial, so let's get right into the video. As you can see right here, this is a really simple example of some ripped drywall paper. You know, sometimes on drywall, you'll rip just the paper if it is unpainted or unfinished like this, or even if it is painted, if it has been painted or primed or anything like that, you might rip a little bit of the paint off and the paper. And it's actually really easy to fix. So when you see this brown part here, you've essentially ripped off the paper. And if you go past the brown part, you're gonna see like the inside part of the drywall, this little white kind of like condensed, compressed stuff. And you can follow basically the same process as long as it's not too big. If it's just ripped paper, it can be as big as you want. You can follow the same process. And if you've gone through the paper and you see the inside, if it's not too big, you can follow the same process. The first thing that you want to do is clean off any excess fuzzy paper. So just get a putty knife like this, like a drywall compound, spatula, whatever you want to call it, and just scrape across like this. Make sure that nothing is flaking off. If you see any fuzzy pieces, you can also use a box cutter to just like sort of trim them out. You want to make sure you have a solid edge, because if it's not a solid edge and if there's anything flaking off, that's going to show through in the finish. Once you've done that, you're ready to apply your drywall compound. Now, some people will tell you you need to prime this first. You can prime this first, and you can do that, but I've patched quite a few of these situations like this, and nothing has ever flaked off, nothing has ever peeled off or anything like that, or shown through the paint. Like it looks perfect every time I do it. Now, if you prime it, you do have a better chance of success, but even without priming it, you're still in a really good spot. So that's why I don't bother priming it, but it's up to you. You can go ahead and prime it if you want to. But then you gotta wait for the primer to dry. So just keep that in mind. What you wanna do is take your putty knife and you wanna get just a little bit of drywall compound right here. I call it putty. I say putty is my buddy because I use it all the time, you know, to repair stuff and to add stuff, home projects, blah, blah, blah. But you wanna get a little bit of drywall compound and you wanna just get it over top of this and also around. So like where I'm drawing my finger is probably the area that you want, give or take, just slightly larger than this. So I'm gonna just place it on there, and you wanna just basically put it on there and then just scrape it down nice and flush. Now you don't want to put too much on, but you can sand off any extra, which I'll show you in a moment. So it doesn't really matter that much, it's just more sanding. So you want to essentially, for sure you want to cover up that spot with putty. So at this point, I would probably leave it like that. I would take this down a bit because that's a little bit too much over here. So I'd take that down a bit. But essentially, don't be afraid to continue going back and forth until you get your desired level of drywall compound, okay? So for a first coat, I would say that would be about good. I would take a little bit off here, but that would be about good. You're gonna let that dry. Okay, you're gonna let that dry. Depending on the type of drywall compound you're using, it can take as little as 15 minutes or even less than that, to be honest with you, or it can take overnight. It all depends on how much you put down and the type of drywall compound, but make sure it's completely dry. It's gonna look like that when it's dry, okay? When it's dry, you're gonna add another coat on there, and you're gonna continue adding coats and letting them dry until you can no longer see that drywall rip. It's gonna look something like this when it's done, okay? When it's finished and it might be larger, might be smaller. With each coat, you're gonna go bigger so you can create a nice smooth finish. If you just keep piling on over here, it's just gonna get thicker and thicker. You wanna go bigger with each additional coat so you get a nice rounded off finish, like a nice smooth finish, almost like as little of a raise as possible over the level of drywall, okay? When you're done and when you're happy with the coverage of it, okay, then what you're gonna do is you're gonna end up with something like this over here, and you're gonna sand it down. I do apologize about the lighting. My garage motion sensor light is going on and off depending on where I move in the garage. And I have my main light on, but it's just not enough. And sort of my shadow is literally just blocking that. I'm gonna move completely out of the way. There we go. So essentially, you're gonna end up with something like this. You're gonna take some relatively fine sandpaper, and what you wanna do is sand it down enough so that it's smooth, but not so much so you're gonna see the ripped paper underneath. You're gonna sand it down, so go start in the middle, get it to the level that you want it to be, okay? Once you've done the middle, then you feather out the edges. You see these hard edges? You want to avoid those hard edges. So I'm going to go just along the edges now and lightly. Look at this. Look at how soft those edges are now. Look at that. Look. Beautiful. Can you tell I drywalled my entire basement myself and did all the drywall compound, the mudding myself? Can you tell? I'm not a professional by any means, but I got a lot of experience doing my entire basement, ceilings, walls, I was gonna say floors, but not floors, anything. Everything other than the floors essentially was drywall. And yeah, you're gonna end up with something like that. When you end up with a nice smooth finish like that, you can then prime it and paint it. And you do want to prime the end result. I'll tell you why. Because that over there, if you just paint over it, you're probably going to see the difference between the paint on here and the paint that was pre-existing on the wall. Whereas if you prime it first, it's going to get it ready, number one, for the paint to adhere. But number two, it'll just allow everything to match. But that's it. That is how to fix ripped drywall paper. An easy tutorial, very, very easy to do. I'm going to get out of the light here, but that's it. Honestly, I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment, and of course, be sure to subscribe for more great videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.